Today, we're celebrating a team that heads into the All-Star break 44-10. I'm joined by Mikey McNuggets from the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show, and he also hosts a Cavs live stream for Bleacher Report. And we are recognizing the best moments and showing the Cavs some love today through some awards. Hi, I'm Zach, and welcome to the Sports Ethos Cleveland Cavaliers podcast, your safe space to celebrate and nerd out about the Cavs. And when I say nerd out, you know what I'm talking about. We're talking hoops, backed by stats you've actually heard of. To join the discussion, use hashtag CavsCast on social media. Today, I got a fun one for you. I'm joined by the real star of the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. He also hosts a weekly Cavs live stream on Bleacher Report and happens to be the owner of the best nickname in Cavs media. It's Mikey McNuggets. What's going on, dude?
I am doing well, Zach. Happy to be here. And I told you I'm doing a Bleacher Report stream after this, and I'm stealing two of the things we talk about on this podcast for the Bleacher Report stream. So you had a good idea, and I figured let's make sure the nation sees some of these good ideas. So excited to talk some Cavs with you today, man.
Hey, I will tune in and just wait to hear it. And it'll be happening while I'm editing all of this. So you've been everywhere lately. I have heard you a couple of times on Fear the Fro. I heard you on the Chase Down pod. I saw you do like a pre-trade deadline trade pitch round table with Tony, Luca, and Mac all in that. That's just the stuff I know of outside of your actual job. You're a hot commodity right now. So I want to start with you for a second. For starters, what's it like working with the guys on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show?
It's a blast, man. I tell people I'm the luckiest guy in the world. I think I have the best job in America. I wouldn't trade it for just about anything. I get to come in, make a few graphics, and then talk sports for 2 hours with my friends. So I have a hard time complaining. And for as frustrated as I get sometimes in the moment when Bull cuts me off, or I'm trying to wrap up a topic and Jay just keeps rambling on, or Tyvis takes us off on a tangent, that's the beauty of a show like that, especially on YouTube where you don't have hard outs and commercial breaks. We can have some fun and go on some random tangents. So there are days where I'm trying to wrap them up and swinging my arm like crazy, and no one sees that behind the scenes. But I like talking sports with my friends, and the guys I work with, Bull, Jay, Jason, Tyvis, Dustin, all those guys have become more than just coworkers. I truly do consider them friends. So I'm pretty lucky, man. I can't complain.
So how much credit for that show's success should actually go to you? How what's that pie?
Listen, that's a great question. And can I take you back to go forward?
Yeah.
All right. So the initial Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show was not supposed to be the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. It was supposed to be the Ultimate Dallas Sports Show. And it was going to be in Texas. And I was working in College Station when Tegna kind of came up with the idea to launch a digital show. And I was doing regular TV and said, I don't want to do regular TV anymore. Like, no one's waiting for 6 and 11 o'clock to see my highlights. They just go on Twitter. So I wanted to get into the digital space, applied for the job, and got hired to be the producer of the Ultimate Dallas Sports Show. And then Tegna got sold for about 2 weeks. And during that 2-week span, the Dallas station that Tegna owned was going to be siphoned off to another TV company. So they said, okay, if we have to pivot and we can't go in Dallas, what's the next best place with space and a big name we could attach to the show? Cleveland. And Jay Crawford was involved. So I was employee number 2 on the project. So despite the fact on a day-to-day basis, now I don't think I'd get as much of the credit. I'm going to tap myself on the back and say I deserve a good amount of credit for kind of helping Steve Becker take this vision for a show and bring it to reality. But on a day-to-day, man, I just roll the ball out and let them play. It's like being Steve Kerr when you have Kevin Durant, Klay Thompson, and Steph Curry on your team. You just got to give them the ball, let them do what they do best. So I give myself 15% of the credit, and the panelists 85%. And no, I'll give myself 15. I'll give Ant and Earl 20% for doing all the back-end stuff they helped me with, and then that leaves 65% for the panel. So that's
I heard 99. That's what I heard. I heard 99. Now, you also have the Bleacher Report live stream, which we just talked about. You are the second person that I'm a fan of online that has gotten one of those here just very recently. How did that thing come to be?
So last year, G. Bush had been doing Bleacher Report streams for a while, and I'm not quite sure how G. Bush got involved with Bleacher Report, but G was my introduction into that. They hit him up one day and asked if he could do a Cavs stream. And G couldn't do it, but he said, hey, I have another guy I work with that I think would do a great job hosting the Cavs stream. Would you mind if I sent him your number and you guys could talk. And if you like him, he could do it. And I got a text that day from someone at Bleacher Report saying, "Hey, Mike, this is so-and-so from Bleacher Report. Any chance you want to do a stream today? We'll pay you a little bit and you'll be on the app." I was like, "This is a joke. Like, appreciate you, but and he's like, "No, we're being serious. G recommended." So I called G. I was like, "Is this real?" And he said, "Yeah, man, I sent him your name. I thought you'd kill it." So I did it. It went good enough that they started hitting me up every once in a while for a fill-in for Cavs and Browns if G or whoever else they had doing it wasn't available. And then last football season, we kind of made a UCSS Bleacher Report partnership where our post-game shows were simulcast on our YouTube page and the Bleacher Report app, which was awesome because you know, we're a Cleveland show, but now we're getting a national platform for the post-game shows, which are our biggest entity. And then in 2025, Bleacher Report kind of switched up their streaming schedule. They wanted a weekly show for each team, all 30 NHL teams, all 30 NBA teams, all 32 NFL teams, all 30 Major League Baseball teams. And based on what they had seen and kind of my growth with doing enough streams for them, they asked if I wanted to do the Cavs one. And I said, absolutely. I'm not turning down a side check and a national audience. So that's kind of how it all came together. But G. Bush was the one that made the initial introduction.
Nice. McNuggets. There's a story there.
Yeah. It's so before I was McNuggets and before I was Mike, I grew up in a tiny, tiny town in New Jersey. And there were 31 kids in my 6th grade class and 7 Mikes. And Miss Littlefield, my 6th grade teacher, said, "Nope, not a chance. You're all going by last name." So I was actually Lucas or Luke from age 11 until age 25. Even in my first TV job, even though I was Mike Lucas on TV, nobody called me Mike outside of TV. It was Luke or Lucas. And then eventually you move jobs, and I didn't know anyone that I was going to this new station at. And they're like, "I'm not calling you Lucas, you're Mike." So Mike became more common. And when I got here, I was Mike until the 3rd day of UCSS. We had Joe Thomas on the show, and he forgot my name, which makes this even better. And was like, "What's your producer's name again?" Mikey McNuggets, something like that. And as soon as he said McNuggets, Joe Thomas, Hall of Famer, he's the one of the best left tackles ever, a Browns legend. When he kind of dubs you with a nickname and your name is as forgettable as humanly possible for an average white guy, like Mike is the most forgettable generic name ever, you kind of stick with it. And now it's stuck around. I don't mind it. People in public yell McNuggets or say McNuggets, and I'm kind of ashamed to admit that I'm now attuned. If someone says McNuggets, I look like I assume they're talking to me, which I never thought I would go by, 10 years ago. But there are certain times where it gets a little iffy. The first time I was at a Cavs media event, no one had called me Mike. They all go by McNuggets. And BJ, who runs the Cavs PR, called on me to ask a question and said, "Michael." Now, I've never been Michael in my entire life. Like my parents were. And I'm not thinking he's talking to me. I'm assuming there's some other Mike. He's like, "Michael, Mike," once again, not registering because at this point I'm still McNuggets. He's like, "Mike, it's your," I was like, "Oh, my bad. And afterwards he goes, "I'm not calling you McNuggets in this setting. Like, you're Mike." So when I'm with the Cavs, I'm Mike. When I'm on UCSS, it's McNuggets. When I go back to Jersey, it's Luke or Lucas. So a man of many names, but I've kind of grown to like the McNuggets lore. And if you say McNuggets and you're in the realm and context of something sports, I feel like people know who you're talking about now. And yeah, I've embraced it. So that's kind of how it all came to be.
I knew there'd be a story. I didn't know it was going to be a crisis of identity.
Yeah, a little bit. Shout out Joe Thomas, though. I'm in Joe Thomas's phone as McNuggets. So until he changes that, I don't think I could just completely erase it off the face of the earth.
No, I can't imagine that you would even want to. Like, this is you are going to have 7 children, and they're all going to have different little McChicken and little McDouble and maybe you have twins. They're both McDoubles.
Yeah, my girlfriend, they joke, they call her Miss Nuggets. So it's got a whole life of its own. And I don't have an issue with it. I enjoy the fact that if you're going to go by something memorable, McNuggets, it's certainly not the worst thing you could go by. And Mike, there's a million Mikes. There's one McNuggets.
That is a fact. And I will share with you off the air some of the nicknames that I had throughout my life, because not a single one of them is appropriate with the recording button on.
Totally understandable.
All right. Enough about McNuggets for the time being. Let's go to the Cavs. I mentioned briefly when we were setting this up one of the things on this podcast that I do is I like to essentially tell the story of the week or the season or whatever through a series of awards. And then I give them what I think are clever names. Probably me and the wall think that, but that's okay. And since we're officially at the All-Star break, I thought it'd be fun to give out some like celebratory awards for the season so far. We've got 6 of them that we're going to go through. I have obviously asked McNuggets to bring his answers. I've got mine. We have not seen each other's, and we're just going to dive into these things and see how many. My guess is that we're going to pick different things for most of these, and it gives us a platform to kind of celebrate multiple things. If not, and we are just fully on the same page and agree on every single thing, 1, I'm going to think that's weird. But then 2, we'll have fun with that too. So we are going to start with the hated to love it, the underdogs on top game of the year so far. And I'm going to let you go first.
I had 2. And if you have the same one, I'll make the case for the other one. But the 2 games I chose were the home win against Boston, where Donovan Mitchell scored 20 points in the fourth quarter, was perfect from the floor, or the home win against the Oklahoma City Thunder, where Evan hit the shot over Hartenstein. They beat. It was the matchup that we were all waiting for, the 2 best teams in the league. Were either of those your answers, Zach?
Yeah, I had the Thunder game.
Then I'll go with the Celtics game, and you can go with the Thunder game, because those were, to me, were 1 and 2. That Boston game on December 1st ended up being a 115-111 final. They were down double digits. It's the defending champs. Donovan goes nuclear in the fourth quarter, 20 points, 6 of 6 from the field, or didn't miss a shot. I think it was 6 of 6 from the field, 4 of 4 from the line. But more than Donovan going crazy and overcoming the Celtics' double-digit lead, it was Darius's defense in that game. Boston hunted the switch every single possession, and Darius was tasked to go one-on-one with Jason Tatum time after time after time. And sure, Tatum ended up scoring on a couple of occasions, but for the most part, Darius held his own, and I thought that more than anything else was a statement to the team that they had to make a statement against. Nothing against Oklahoma City, who's the best team in basketball this season in the Western Conference. They have the best record. I get that. That game was awesome and could very easily be the answer to this question, Zach. But the Celtics are the defending champs and the team that the Cavs have to get through to get to Oklahoma City or whoever comes out of the West. And the fact that Donovan put on a performance in the fourth quarter like that, the fact that Darius held up defensively and proved, at least for one night, that he's capable of withstanding the beating it takes to guard Tatum in ISO situations, and the fact that he said after that game, I felt disrespected. I wasn't going to let them punk me by calling out those switches each time. To me, that was the game of the year. And I'm not sure I heard an arena this season as loud as it was for that particular game when Donovan hit his 4th 3 of the quarter that put them in top for the final time.
I can't argue. I can't argue with any of that because you're right. And honestly, even the games that they've lost against Boston, it hasn't felt like they were overmatched. You know, and that game essentially proved it out in a way that they actually got over the hump. What's been frustrating against Boston, what I think, DeAndre Hunter helps with, is essentially the holes that they've had to dig themselves out of in those losses. And that's been so frustrating. Also, a big reason why I think you start DeAndre Hunter, but that's not a topic that we need to tackle today. I think it's a great choice. I'm obviously going with the Thunder game, national TV game, 2 best in each conference. Top offense versus the top defense. Both came in on winning streaks. I should have written them down. I can't remember where they both were, but I think they were both double-digit winning streaks going into that game.
I think it was 18 and 11, if my memory serves correct.
I think you're right.
I mean, the hype for that game was incredible.
It was insane. And then it lived up to it. 34 lead changes. Neither team led by double digits at any point in time in that game. It was really competitive defensively on both ends, but they still scored. So it didn't slog. It didn't bog down. It was highly entertaining throughout the entirety, from tip to buzzer. 129-122 is what that final score was. And in my opinion, this was the best game in the NBA season so far from an entertainment value standpoint. Definitely the best I've seen live for sure. And when I say live, I mean on my TV, but actually watching while it was happening. And they shot almost 42% from 3, But the most impressive thing to me throughout that game is that the Thunder actually did a really good job of making the guards uncomfortable in that game, especially Mitchell, who was only like 3 of 16. He had 11 points. Garland was better. He ended that one with 18 and 7 assists, but still that's, quiet by his standards. And this is because of how physical and long the Thunder are at the point of attack. And I thought the way the Cavs were able to pivot and take advantage of their size was just absolutely perfect in that game, with Evan Mobley going for 21, 10, and 7 on 8 of 13 shooting, and him not having the best performance of the two bigs because Jarrett Allen was at 25 and 11 and also had 6 assists, which is not a thing that Jarrett Allen does. And he missed 2 shots. He was 9 of 11. It was insane. The big-to-big passing was perfect, and it was the exact counter that they needed, because the reason the Thunder have the best defense in the league is because they're able to keep teams out of the paint. They give up the fewest opponent points in the paint, like 42.5. They lead the league in steals. They're disruptive at the point of attack, and the Cavs got 60 of their points in the paint. And that short roll, unlocking that between the two big-to-big passing lays, it was the perfect counter. They couldn't replicate in the second meeting, but for that game, they proved that they can absolutely play with the top contenders in the league and have a legitimate shot at a playoff run.
My note for that game was the big-to-big domination and the way that late in the game, OKC tried to blitz Garland. They threw it to Allen, and on 2 different occasions, he made passes to Mobley in the short roll for a dunk with less than a second of the ball being in his hand. And I have a whole video breakdown coming out on this on a couple weeks, but his transformation in particular of being maybe not elite, but a really good short roll passer has unlocked so much on the backside for this Cavs offense. And that might be the most impressive single thing that Kenny Atkinson and this staff have done, is instilling the confidence in Mobley and Allen to not just catch in those situations, but catch and make the right read at the same time. Like, as Allen's turning, he's surveying the court, and Mobley does the same thing. Either one, you can pick and choose the position, but they're catching, turning, surveying the court, and deciding in real time, do I attack? Do I kick? Do I drive? Where's the help side defender? Is the guy stepping up? Is he staying back? Their ability to read a defense in real time with guys collapsing down is night and day from last season. And that's what's, frankly, in my opinion, allowed them to be so successful on the court together this year.
I completely agree. Next award. Alice, are you blind? Don't you see the family resemblance? That's my brother. Award for Cav of the Year. So far, which one did you go with on this one, McNuggets?
So for all of these, I gave a gold, a silver, and a bronze. So if you went with the same one, then we could switch. So my gold was everybody. Like, they've all been awesome, but I'm actually going to go with Darius Garland for this, because I saved Mobley and Donovan for something else down the road. But I'm going to go with Darius because, I don't think he's getting nearly enough credit for how well he's playing this season. And you could give this to Donovan and Evan. I would have no issue whatsoever if you wanted to say that. There's not a wrong answer here. But Darius is the only guard in the NBA who's part of the 50-40-90 club. I know he's shooting 49.8% from the field now because he shot not so great yesterday, but you get what I'm saying. He's the only guard in basketball that is in the realm right now of the 50-40-90 club, and he's been the most statistically clutch player in all of basketball. His plus-minus first in the NBA in clutch minutes. He's shooting 60% from the floor, 58% from 3. He has a 6-to-1 assist-to-turnover ratio in clutch minutes. And if you told me before the season that at the midway point, 53 games in, that Darius Garland would have more steals and just as many blocks in clutch time minutes as he would total turnovers, I would have laughed you out the gym. And that's exactly the situation. He has 3 steals, 2 blocks, and only 2 turnovers in the clutch. His ability to be at his best in the biggest and most important moments is what, in my opinion, has made the Cavs damn near unbeatable in those clutch situations this season. And I know he missed the one free throw, or the free throws against Houston, but then he comes back and hits the buzzer beater against Detroit. We expected this from Donovan. We'll get to Mobley's ascension. He's been incredible this year. I'm not taking anything away from Evan. But in my opinion, the Cav of the year thus far has been Darius Garland.
I could give it to Donovan. He's the star, and it's his willingness and even eagerness, I would say, to elevate his teammates that's been the catalyst to their success so far this year. But I completely agree with you. I had Darius Garland as well. A couple of things that jumped out to me. You were talking about clutch stuff. This is the thing that I think sometimes gets a little bit lost in the Darius Garland clutch conversation. Not only is he first on the team in clutch points, he's first on the team in clutch field goal attempts. Yeah. He's taking more shots in the clutch than Donovan is. Could you imagine over the past 2 years with the way that the Cavs have played basketball, even fathoming a world in which the Cavs are in a clutch moment down the stretch and it is not Donovan Mitchell taking that shot?
And feeling good about it. That's the difference.
Right.
I could have imagined a world where it's not Donovan, but I'm pissed off that it's not Donovan.
Because he fouled out.
Imagined a world where it's not Donovan, and I feel great about it. And even if it's not Donovan or Darius, I still don't feel terrible about it. So, yeah, you're right. It's been one of the great secrets of the Cavs' success this season.
It really has. He's been Darius has been also my favorite, to be honest with you. So there's a little bit of bias in this. I have not felt joy like this watching just an individual player play basketball in a really long time. Even some of the LeBron years, and I'm a LeBron guy, but I'm getting teenage Zach watching Allen Iverson vibes when I watch Darius Garland this year. I've made that known on the pod. It's just pure basketball joy is a phrase that comes out of my mouth a lot with Darius Garland. Next award we're going to do is the knock, knock, open up the door. It's real for X Factor of the year. Who do you got for this one?
Another category with a ton of different options, but the X Factor of the year, in my opinion, has been Mobley's offensive development, his three-point shot, but just the overall confidence that Evan Mobley has displayed from an offensive standpoint. Give Kenny Atkinson a lot of credit because coaching does play a role in this. But let's also acknowledge the fact that Evan Mobley is 22, 23 years old, still developing, and the work he's put in over the last couple of off seasons is finally paying off. His finishing is better this year, Zach. All the numbers bear it out, and the eye test specifically bears it out. He has the ability to dunk with both hands. He has the ability to finish with both hands. He's developed, even in the last couple of weeks, this little slow deceleration finish where he takes his 2 steps, but on the last step, instead of jumping, he just stops. I've been playing basketball for 20 years. I played in college. I can't do that. I'm 5'8". That's a move I should be able to do because I weigh 160 pounds, not a 220-pound, 7-foot unicorn. He's gotten incredible at it. His shooting is better. He's more confident taking those jump shots. He's not thinking when he catches on the perimeter. He's catching and shooting if he's open. His passing, his decision-making is better. We talked about that earlier. And he's even setting better screens. But when this season started, I was hesitant, and I still am a little hesitant come playoff time, that the 2 bigs could play together. But the reality of the situation now is that they don't have 2 bigs. They have Jared Allen and a supersized wing. And that's because Evan Mobley has developed into this offensive weapon for the Cavs. He's not a stiff. He's not a guy you could ignore. And he's a guy, if you put a weak defender on, he can be your mismatch and your advantage on offense that you could pick on time after time after time. The fact that he's become this level of offensive scorer and creator has unlocked everything else on the backside for other players to thrive. So to me, the X factor of this team's success has been Evan Mobley's development.
And we clearly shared notes. I was with you. 100%.
I promise we won't have the same one for the next one. I promise you we won't have the same one.
It's okay. No, I completely agree. I think he is literally, his ascension has been the key that he unlocks Jarrett Allen in the dunker spot with his ability to make plays from the short roll. He unlocks their transition, being able to grab and go off of a defensive rebound. He unlocks their spacing in the half court when he's shooting the 3 without hesitating. And it also unlocks things for him going to the rim with his drives because guys actually bite on that pump fake now. It's not a pump fake for the sake of just hesitating because the defender's still 8 feet away from you and you're pump faking nobody. That's not in his game anymore. That's gone. He pump fakes. People actually care because he's up to 38% on 3 attempts a game He's only playing 30 minutes still, so he could keep going. What's kind of blowing my mind is that he doesn't get more up from the corners. I feel like Kenny could unlock that more. He's shooting 47% from the corners.
Yeah.
That could be a playoff thing, right? Like that could be one of those things that they uncork in the playoffs, and he unlocks that as well. He unlocks their defense by being a complete just menace and massive defensive presence. One of the best, 3 defenders on the planet Earth. Yeah, and I mentioned those drives. He's driving as almost the only guys on the Cavs that are driving more than him are Mitchell, Garland, and Ty Jerome.
Yeah.
And he shoots 52% on those. He gets 68% of his points when he's driving to the lane. Like he's been a terror finishing. He's a terror disrupting on the other end. He's the key. And to me, a key is the X factor.
Can I give one more thing on the Mobley, or a different X factor that we didn't talk about just because we had the same answer?
Sure.
How about the fact that everyone who's played this year has played incredibly well for the Cavs? Like nobody has been a dud. All 15 guys they put out there. Well, with all due respect to Emoni Bates, he has not lived up to what we thought yet. So he's the one guy, and he hasn't had enough opportunities. I'm not even saying it's a bad thing, but he's the one guy who hasn't been at minimum what you'd expect in the minutes they've gotten. Craig Porter Jr., whenever he plays, he produces. Sam Merrill, I know he had a shooting slump earlier, but he's so much better defensively than I ever imagined he could be, and he's red hot from 3 of late. Niang and LeVert, appreciate their services. They were both the best they had ever been in their respective roles this season. Ty Jerome, who we'll talk about in a second, I promise, but nothing else needs to be said. The entire starting 5, Dean Wade, Max Strus. The X factor is they can put out 12, 13 guys on any given night, and all 12 or 13 can play. So, yes, Mobley's the right answer for this question. But you really could have picked any one of these guys. The depth, it's all been an incredible culmination that has led the Cavs to, was it the 44-10, 43-10? Whatever the record is.
44-10.
Yeah, I mean, their magic number's 5, and it's February 13th. It's not even Valentine's Day yet, and their playoff magic number's 5. It's stupid, Zach.
It's insane. Really, the only guy, it's Merrill, and it's because of the shooting. But if I would have told you at the beginning of the season that the Cleveland Cavaliers were going to lead the league in 3-point percentage and Sam Merrill was going to shoot 35% for most of that time, what would have been your PG reaction to that?
Yeah, good luck. This podcast, so I got to run in 7 seconds later.
Yeah.
Yeah, we wouldn't believe it. So,
right. Next award. As big as winning 5 Grammys for a diss track and then performing at the Super Bowl for Moment of the Year so far. What'd you have on this one?
How about you go first? Because I have 2, but I've taken your answers the last 2 times, Zach. So you give us your Moment of the Year.
I was toggling between like 3 of them. I ultimately went with that magic number of 3, having 3 players named to the All-Star team. And the reason that I went with this for me is because of the way that the fan voting actually started. Mitchell was up there. Mobley barely cracked the top 10 in those first results that came back. And then they started getting some national attention. And then all of a sudden, Mobley, Garland, Jarrett Allen started climbing up in the fan voting. Still only Mitchell was guaranteed a spot, but the coaches ended up putting Garland and Mobley in the game. And I'm pretty sure I heard him say on the broadcast that it's only the 3rd time for the Cavs franchise that they've had 3 All-Stars. And the NBA world has been pretty slow to come around on the Cavs, and they're still in a lot of ways in a prove it type of a situation in a lot of just general NBA fans' minds. And to have 3 guys in the All-Star game is just a level of validation at this point in the season that it's not smoke and mirrors. These guys are legit stars in the league, and they're still so young between Garland and Mobley that this could be one of many All-Star weekends that is taken over by wine and gold, and having the coaches there as well because they're winning so much is just icing on the cake. And I think edged out some of the other ones that I had on my list.
I'm glad you went first because that's a perfect lead into where I wanted to take this. So the Moment of the Year, I'll get to you in a sec. I wanted to say the DeAndre Hunter trade, but it's only been 2 games. Let's see how that pans out first before we fight the moment of the year. I thought about the Darius Garland buzzer beater against Detroit a couple weeks ago, but I went back to a game we talked about earlier. And my moment of the year is Evan Mobley catching it one-on-one against Isaiah Hartenstein in the home game against the Thunder, taking it to him and finishing through contact to seal the win for the Cavs for the exact reason you just mentioned in terms of why you thought the 3 All-Stars was the moment of the year. It was validation. For a couple different reasons, that shot to me signified to everyone else who was outside of Cleveland who had their doubts, is this offense that's putting up historic numbers sustainable against an elite defense? Well, they scored 127 or 129 points. I forget the final number in that. 129. So yes, sustainable against an elite defense. Is Evan Mobley's ascension a mirage or is this real? Well, you know what? It's damn near real enough to give the ball to him in a late game situation against the best defense in basketball, against a really good perimeter, big man defender and interior defender in Isaiah Hartenstein. And 3, Mobley didn't score on a fadeaway. Mobley didn't score on a wide open jump shot. Mobley didn't 3 pump fakes. Hartenstein eventually jumps and dunks it. Mobley caught the ball, dribbled left, crossed over, went through the contact, and finished strong. It was everything we had been begging from Evan Mobley for his first 3 seasons in the league, kind of put together into one moment. And for the same thing you said, the validation that other people were now believing in the Cavs, I don't disagree with what you said. I just already thought that validation had come when Isaiah Hartenstein had to look at the ball fall through the net, knowing the game was over on national TV in the most hyped matchup of the season. So to me, Mobley taking it one-on-one and converting with that on the line on that stage against that defender, to me, that was the moment of the year.
I love that answer. I also would have accepted the DeAndre Hunter trade. It came to my mind because of not because necessarily that they did it or him coming in was the, quote unquote moment, but the fact that they actually went for it.
Yeah.
And they took that swing was like, okay, this is using that word again, validation. This is validation from the front office. Like, we think that we're contenders and we're going to do everything that we can to give ourselves the best chance at winning this thing. So that was why I had that on my short list as well. Next award, the Killing 'Em Softly Award for Performance of the Year. What did you have here?
This was tough. I had 3 different options. If you take mine, I will be shocked. You may have the same player, but not the same performance. My performance of the year, Zach, was Ty Jerome.
Oh,
not his 8 of 8 game against Philadelphia.
Of course not.
That was a loss, so it can't be the moment of the year. But it was Ty Jerome against the New Orleans Pelicans earlier in this season when he hit 6 threes in the second quarter, 3 of them being from 30-plus feet. The confidence he showed in that moment. I felt like I was watching prime Michael Jordan play against 6th graders. That's how confident Ty Jerome was walking up the court with the ball in his hands that night against the New Orleans Pelicans. Ty Jerome is an awesome story. He's also going to be my answer to another category coming up, so we'll save some of it. But that night, Ty Jerome was the best basketball player on the planet. For that quarter, he may have been the best basketball player I'd ever seen for a 7-minute stretch. My performance, I don't give a crap what he did in the first quarter, the third quarter, or the fourth quarter. That second quarter, the 6 threes he hit, the fact that 3 of them came from, it's a terrible, it went, good shot. Like that. I've been to 20-something Cavs games this year. I don't know the exact number, but I've been to almost every home game. I have never been in shock like I was in that quarter, and I've never seen press row look at each other during that stretch. Are we like did so to me, Zach, maybe it's because I was there and I experienced it live in person. That second quarter of Ty Jerome against the New Orleans Pelicans from earlier this year, he ended up with 26 points. I think he had 22 of them this quarter, whatever the number was. That was the performance of the year. There are other great options. You can go a different route, but that 7-8 minute stretch in the second quarter against New Orleans, to me, was the performance of the year.
It's not the one that I was expecting you to do, which is why I like it so much. I also tried to go a little bit unexpected. I've got Darius Garland against the Knicks all the way back
I don't even
on
remember what he did on
October
that game.
28th. This was game like 4
Yeah.
of the season. So I could argue there were better statistical games to choose from. You know, there were better, you brought up a very good hot stretch to choose from, but this one sticks out to me because of how he got the numbers that he did and what it represented. It was only, like I said, the 4th game of the season. At that point, we had no idea they were about to win like 11 more in a row.
Yeah.
But what we did know is that at that time, the Knicks were supposed to be the biggest threat to the Celtics in the East. This was supposed to be a measuring stick game for the Cavs. It was in Madison Square Garden. And Darius Garland announced his bounce back from last year's hell season that he went through. And he launched himself into that like clutch player of the year conversation in game 4. He scored 34 points in that game. He was 12 of 19, 5 of 8 from 3. Hit all 5 of his free throws, 2 steals, 2 blocks, getting it done on both ends and asserting his dominance, particularly when it mattered most. All of those defensive metrics that I said, blocks, steals, all of them came in the 4th quarter. The same 4th quarter that he scored 15 points and orchestrated their comeback win in like 8 minutes. 3 of his 5 threes came in that 4th. One of them wiped out a Knicks lead. And then he had back-to-back later to stretch the Cavs lead to 8. They win the game by 6. Not only was this a moment for him to shine, but it was also the first sign to the rest of the league before they were even remotely close to believing it, that this Cavaliers team was going to be like actually competing at the top of the league.
I love that answer because I had totally forgotten that game existed. Like that was the other options I had were Mobley's 41 against Charlotte, Donovan's 4th quarter against the Celtics, the big man tandem against the Thunder that we talked about earlier, them doing something that hadn't happened by a big man tandem since David Robinson and Tim Duncan in 90. Like those were where my mind went. Darius Garland in game 4 against the Knicks was as far off my radar as possible. So yeah, you want to talk about 2 different ends of the spectrum here, Zach. I think we nailed what the performance of the year was. That was a great answer.
I like the deep cuts. I'm an album guy. Come on. I don't need the hits. I want the deep cut. All right. Final award we're going to do is Bruce Willis was dead this whole time award for shock of the year. I'll let you go first.
It's got to be Ty Jerome. And the Bruce Willis, is he dead for a whole year? That's what I felt about Ty Jerome last season. He sprained his ankle in the 2nd game of the year. We didn't see him again. And he wasn't even on the bench. I haven't ever gotten clarity on exactly what the issue was, but whatever it was, he is back. He is healthy. I tweeted this the other day. I stand by it. I've yet to hear someone counter with a better option. But outside of rookie contracts, I think Ty Jerome is the most valuable player per his contract this season. He's making just above league minimum at $2.56 million, and he is a legitimate 6th man of the year candidate. He won't win. His numbers aren't that crazy because he's not playing enough minutes and he's not asked to do what some of their 6 men are. But he's averaging 11.5, 4 rebounds, 3 rebounds, 4 assists per game. When Donovan or Darius are out and he plays, he's filling in admirably. In games he's played 20 or more minutes this season, Zach, he's averaging 19, 5, and 5. Like he's giving you essentially starter production in bench minutes and making the league minimum. In a million years, did not think Ty Jerome had this level of basketball in him. He was great at Virginia. He's a 1st-round pick of the Suns. He's bounced around the league. Injuries have kind of derailed any consistent minutes he's gotten. But even if you had asked what is the best possible outcome for Ty Jerome on the Cavs this season, I would not have anticipated this. And I can tell you, I don't have this confirmed by enough people to officially report it. So don't take this as anything official. I'm just speculating in a way. But the Cavs were $1.9 million over the luxury tax before the DeAndre Hunter trade. Ty Jerome makes $2.56 million. I think had Ty Jerome not been the player that he has turned into, the Cavs' plan from the onset was just to dump Ty Jerome at the deadline and get on the luxury tax that way. I'm pretty sure that's essentially what their plan was had they not gotten off to this historic start and been on a torrid pace and become a legitimate championship contender. He's been so good that not only did they not consider that, Kobe Altman would have been ran out of town if that had been a consideration. That's how good Ty Jerome had been. So to me, this was the easiest one. Ty Jerome's got to be the shock of the year.
That was my assumption as to what you would say. So I pivoted and went a little bit macro. And I'm going to pose it essentially as a question. Coaching matters in the NBA?
Does.
That
Shocking,
is,
right?
that is my shock of the year. You hear a lot on the internet about how the NBA coaches are nothing. They don't actually do anything. It's a star-driven league, and nobody else matters. They do all the coaching, they do all the GM moves, they call all the plays, and coaches are just they're scapegoats at best. Until a week ago today, this Cleveland Cavaliers roster was essentially the exact same as it was last year. And getting Ty Jerome back and adding Jalen Tyson, that is the only difference. Yet Kenny Atkinson came in here and turned them into a completely different team. They're like second in scoring. Last year, they were 20th. Mm-hmm. They had like a 9% year-over-year increase in just points per game. They have the best offensive rating. Last year, they were 16th. And this is the thing that stands out to me every time I go look at it, because they've been inconsistent on that end of the floor. And so it feels more like the defense isn't there. Last year, they were a defense-first team under JB. They finished last season 7th in defensive rating at 112.1. This year, they are 8th in the macro at 111.6. Their defense is actually better than it was last year, while their offense is completely on fire. And I have 1,000 stats that I pulled and stacked up here that we could go through the minutia of one day when we had a little bit more time and perhaps Adderall and Red Bull. But basically, it comes down to the pace at which he has them playing, the movement at which he has guys buying into, the cutting, the passing, everything that the entire philosophy of this team changed. He created space where previously no space existed. Yes, you can point to improvements in a guy like Evan Mobley being a catalyst for allowing this kind of offense to even work and this to happen. But he was empowered to do that. He was given that opportunity from the jump. From the first game of the season, he has been grabbing and going off of rebound. Kenny Atkinson came in with a plan and said, this is how we're going to be different. This is how we're going to unlock this team. And he's all the way down to win to challenge. He has missed almost no beats. He's gotten almost everything right so far this season. And it's been, quite frankly, shocking, because I did not think — I was stoked when they hired Kenny Atkinson. This podcast didn't exist yet, but if you go to my YouTube channel that did, I did a video immediately after the hire talking about how this was the best choice that they had on the board and how of anybody that they could have possibly brought in, he was the one that gave them the best chance. This far exceeded any of my wildest expectations that I could have had at that point in time. It's been insane.
And on the flip side, like JB's gone to Detroit and completely turned around their franchise too.
Oh yeah. Coaching
matters, but I think more than necessarily the coach itself, which does matter. Like don't misconstrue what I'm saying. Eventually a coach, his voice runs out in a locker room and you need to change it. Certain guys just connect with a certain group of players better, and their style of how they want to play basketball meshes and matches the talent on the roster better. And Kenny Atkinson, had he been the coach of the Cavs when this was all coming together, like the Cavs in 2021 with Kenny Atkinson or 2022 when they first get Donovan Mitchell aren't clicking like this. It was the right coach at the right time. Evan's a better player. Darius has completely rebounded. I don't think if Kenny's the coach last year and Darius still breaks his jaw and loses 12 pounds midseason, is all of a sudden just not going to be effective. There are a million different factors, but coaching matters. And Kenny, to his credit, there's almost nothing to critique him about so far. because everything he has tried has worked. And not just worked, but worked incredibly well. So it's like the whole starter, should DeAndre Hunter start or whatnot. I saw Chris Fedor pulled the stats today. The starting five, the core four with Max Strus in the starting lineup is the third best five-man lineup in basketball. And the starting core four with Dean Wade in the starting lineup is still really good. And the core four with Isaac Okoro in the starting lineup has a plus 13 net. I more care who finishes than starts. And I know you mentioned Hunter should start. To me, it depends on the matchup. We could spend 30 minutes on that another time. But he's tried his work. So I'm like, you know what, Kenny? You've earned the benefit of the doubt. You're smarter than me. You'll forget more basketball tomorrow than I will ever know. If you think that this guy should start over this guy and you can tell me why, you know what? I'm not going to say anything because so far, everything you've done has worked.
In Kenny, we trust.
Yes.
What are your expectations for the rest of the year for the Cavs?
Just stay healthy. The expectation is this team, they're 44-10. The franchise record for wins is 66. They have to go 22-9, 22-8. My math is not great, but we did this the other day. Essentially, my expectation is clinch the 1 seed, rest the guys, and be as fully healthy as possible for the playoffs. You have a 5.5 game cushion on Boston. The 1 seed, I do think, is incredibly important for Cleveland. It's not nearly as important for Boston as it is for Cleveland. If you're going to play the Celtics, I want Game 7 at home to the utmost extent, but you also have to be healthy. And if it comes down to pushing guys and trying to rush guys back, and if Boston goes on a little run here and Cleveland loses a game or two, and it comes, if the Cavs aren't healthy, they don't have a chance. Or I don't want to say they don't have a chance, but their chances take a significant hit if they are not at their fullest health. And that includes guys like Dean Wade and Okoro and having your full arsenal of bench guys. So I'd rather Kenny play it safe. Don't take your foot off the gas, but you don't have to be full throttle for the final 29 games of the season. Like, let's play it smart. And if you can do that while maintaining a lead over Boston for the 1 seed, when you're playing 5 and 7, give big guys a night off when they need it. If you're playing back-to-backs, load management, I know it's not technically legal, but there are ways to make it legal. Utilize that to your best of abilities. Health, to me, is the most important thing for this team in a playoff run, and making sure you can stay healthy or as healthy as possible while keeping Boston in that 2 seed, I think, is a major benefit for the Cavs down the stretch.
Thank you for doing this. Plug anything and everything on the way out.
Yeah, if you like what we heard, Zach, this was a blast. Love to come back anytime you want. You can follow me on Twitter. My handle is there on the screen, at Mike Lucas TV. I try to tweet mostly Cavs stuff, but sometimes you get some random thoughts here and there. I'm the producer of the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show, which if you haven't checked out, I would highly recommend it. Monday through Friday, 11 in the morning to 1 p.m. in the afternoon. It is also available on VOD, so you can search it if you can't catch it live. We do 2 hours of Cleveland-only sports content every day with some of the biggest sports personalities in the city. We got some former players, we got some insiders, some writers, and a plethora of guests. We had Danny Green on last week. We had CeCe Sabathia on a couple weeks ago. So Browns, Cavs, Guardians, we talk it all. And that's the Bleacher Report app. Download the Bleacher Report app and check out the weekly Cavs stream. It's every Thursday at 5 p.m. during the season and in the off season. It's a year-long thing. So Zach, appreciate you having me on, man.
Yeah, thank you. And it's an open invitation.
I'll take you up on that. Don't worry.
If you made it to the end, please leave a 5-star review in the app that you are hearing my voice in right now. And if you're on YouTube, comment below. Are you watching the All-Star festivities this weekend? Now that the episode is over, go ahead and open your app store and download the Sports Ethos app for one of the best blurb feeds in the business. It's got Cavs players in there, fantasy tools, and a whole lot more. Check it out. It's free. Sports Ethos app. Download it right now. As always, I'm Zach. That was McNuggets. Thanks for nerding out with us, Cavs fans.